So if you would, everyone, would you turn off your microphones, mute them for right now? You can turn on your cameras, but mute the mic. There will be a chance for you to ask questions here in a little bit. But I want to thank our guest speaker for today, Roni LeForge, who is the Public Relations Officer for the City of Carbondale. But before that, and she'll probably get into this a little bit, worked at WSIL and also for one of the local newspapers too, I believe, right?
No, actually I did River Region at SIU. I've dabbled in all kinds of media, maybe freelance. I've wrote a few articles, but most of my background is in the TV industry.
Well, she's going to talk to us a bit today about working in PR, particularly working in PR in a crisis situation right now. Certainly the biggest crisis situation of most of our lives, and what that's like, and having to coordinate the messages from the city out to the public and everything. So if you'll give her your attention, like I said, after she talks a little bit, we'll have some time for some questions and everything. So I will turn it over to you, Roni.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today. Some things that I think are important that you know about me, Justin already covered it, but I was a reporter for WSIL and I worked there for 9 years, but I reported and was actually creating news content for about 6 of those years. A couple of them behind the scenes, and then the majority of them, I would say, were on camera. And then about 9 months ago, I got this job, Carbondale Public Relations Officer, and 2 months into the new job, the biggest crisis of all of our lives happened, and I learned. That's one thing that I think is so important for everyone on here to realize when starting a new job after you graduate, but also whenever you're handling a crisis situation in a PR role, it's okay to not have all of the answers. Your job is to be the one that delivers the information using all of your resources, so all of the experts that surround you, and just develop a great relationship with them. That way they want to feed you information and you can feed it out to the public. So one of the things that I have realized since working in public relations just in the last 9 months is that, especially during this time of a crisis, people normally are very ugly on social media anyway. Skin, which I had luckily developed whenever I worked in TV. But you have to know that during these times, people are fearful, their emotions are high, opinions are everywhere. You can make a post about a new pizza place opening up, and then you're gonna see comments about how people are not wearing masks and they're never shopping in Carbondale again. I mean, it's really quite crazy, the kind of interactions that you'll see on social media. But I think it's important that everybody just realizes that in times of crisis, sometimes when you're the one delivering, you're the messenger, people want to shoot the messenger. So just develop a thick skin and get the information out, keep doing what you're doing. And one thing that I've also found to be so true is that you just want to stay in your own lane, especially during a time of crisis. I used to be the kind of person that was like, you know, I'd get my work done for the day and then I'd be walking around and wanting to help other people, especially when I worked at WSIL. And I've realized now that you really just have to stay in your own lane. Everybody has a job to do, and if all of the wheels are turning at the same pace and the work is getting done at the same pace, then you're going to keep continuing to move forward. So don't try to bounce around too much. Just keep your head down and stay in your own lane. Something that I've also learned during COVID is that even though some people watch the news, people our age typically don't watch the news, and they get their news online. People need updates and they need them often. So for about 5 months, I was on Facebook every day. This includes weekends, offering a daily update. It was a 2 to 3 minute video. I would just recap what the governor had said during his press conference, and deliver that news, because that was my background. That's how I approached it. Deliver that via our social media platforms, so all of them, so Facebook, Twitter, you name it. I had videos out there letting people know the number of cases, and just all of the COVID information that they can find. I was also in charge of updating the COVID-19 resource page, which has been a big project because the resources are always changing. I mean, there's new grants being announced every single week. Sometimes it feels like multiple times a week I'm having to upload new grants or take down old ones that the application deadline has already come and gone. So you just have to really stay on top of your own webpage and make sure that everything is up to date, because if it's not, people will call you out on it. They'll call your phone and they'll just tell you what a horrible person you are. So if you take anything away from this call, it's develop a thick skin. Some other things that I wanted to let you guys know about if you're working in PR during a crisis situation is the work doesn't end at 5 o'clock, and it doesn't end just because it's a weekend. Sometimes, even in this new role, I've gotten a call at 4 in the morning when there's been a shooting and we need to get a press release out. So I take my laptop home with me every single night and I keep my phone on ring. And I know that sounds quite miserable. It doesn't happen all that often, but you just need to be ready to work right away when they need you to work. I was kind of used to that with working in news. I wasn't kind of used to that. I was very much used to that. This is a much slower pace than what I'm used to, but all hours of the day you could be called and you're expected to pick up the phone. So if you're in PR, just know that's part of the gig, but if you're like me, the adrenaline of that is what makes you work well and efficiently, and you can get all that information out and you don't have time to overthink like I do so frequently. Let's see here, I made some notes. I want to let you guys know also that whenever you're posting to your Facebook pages or social media pages, you want to make sure that your content is rich with information, especially during a time of a crisis. So you need information on like tips or where people can go to get COVID testing or how long those tests are going to take to get back. You need interviews with the experts that you can offer to people, quotes that you can put out. Because again, like I mentioned earlier, people are fearful during this time and they are wanting to absorb all of the information that you can. And if they're getting their information on social media, so often it's not accurate. So from the City of Carbondale government Facebook page, I try to make it as rich as I can with COVID-19 information that's short and sweet, because people are not going to read long posts. I would say 3 sentences or shorter. Or make a video. That's why I was doing those daily COVID updates, is because videos are more attractive, which you probably know this, on social media than just reading a post and attaching a picture. You got to have something moving, and people really just feel like, I've heard from so many people after I was doing those daily updates, whenever I finally stopped doing them daily and was just doing them as needed, they were saying, where am I going to get my information now? And I said, well, turn on your TV, because that's, that's usually where I'm getting the information, or you visit the governor's website. So people rely on you as a source, especially if you are consistently putting out information that's short, sweet, to the point, not biased in any way. They're going to be looking to you to make sure that they're staying informed, because people really do want to be informed, despite all those hateful comments. I heard a really interesting quote that I also wanted to share with you, and it says, keep the good, keep the bad, delete the ugly. Have you guys heard that before? Nod your head, shake your head. Never heard that? So with a city government page, I am not allowed to delete comments unless there's hate speech or threats. So any horrible comment that a person can leave, it could be totally off the wall and have, could be not anything about the post that I had just put out there, but you have to keep those up because we are considered a public forum. But you can delete them if it's ugly, so if it's hate speech or threats. So I made a note of that. I thought that was a really clever way of making sure that I don't let those bad comments get to me. Just make sure to delete the ugly, keep the good, keep the bad. So let's see, I had Justin, you also wanted to mention me talking about working with journalists. Do you want to do questions before I switch on to that topic, or?
No, I think you can go ahead and address it. I think your kind of experience of working as a journalist, and having an insight into now what a journalist wants from a PR person, what their needs are, which is sometimes, I think, something that we overlook in the PR field. Especially I tell students, as we're training them, we're often teaching them a sort of one-sided view of this, the symbiotic relationship between journalists and PR professionals. So maybe some of what your experience is working as a journalist and what you were wanting out of PR people, and then now on the other side, how that's benefited you maybe in working with journalists now.
For me, I would say, well, for every journalist, what they're needing is usually a quick response. Even if the response is, hey, I don't have that information for you right now. I'm going to go talk to my boss, see if I can even release it. I'll get back to you soon. And then actually doing what you say you're going to do. Because so often I would make calls and people would tell me they would call me back. And, I had a 5 p.m. deadline and I was going live. And it was 4 o'clock and I still hadn't received a call back. And so that makes for a very miserable day. And it shouldn't be this way. And I was not a reporter that did this, but I saw this in some of my colleagues and just journalists that I knew from school. It affects how the story is presented, depending on how easily they got that information. So they'll say, we reached out for comment this morning and haven't heard back. And, they try little things to throw you under the bus and make you look like you weren't helpful in that situation. So just try to be as helpful as you can, even if all the help you can provide is, I'm sorry, we won't be able to do the interview today, or I won't be able to provide that kind of information for you today. Something else that you should know when working with journalists are the TV industry has changed so much. And all of those reporters, they're so green, they're so new, they're fresh out of school, they're working in, small markets, big markets, doesn't matter. They're usually hiring people that are fresh out of school because they can get them for a lower price. But with that means that they don't know how to write a story sometimes that is fair. So whenever I do an interview with a reporter, I talk about it a little bit before the interview, and then I do the interview, and then I talk with them afterwards about like a recap, and then I always send a follow-up email. And I find that the follow-up email is really helpful because journalists are very busy, and sometimes when they're logging your interview, they're missing little things that you said. So if you have all that information in one place, I'll be listening to the news and it'll actually be the sentence that I wrote, which is what I want. You know what I mean? I want it to come off like how I said it. So if you make it easy on them, they'll make it easy on you, even if they don't know that they're doing that. And just put out the information that you have asked them to put out. Some other things, you want to develop a good relationship with these reporters. Whenever I go to events and, I see all of my new colleagues over here and I see the TV crews over here, depending on the event, I usually will swing by, make sure everybody that it has a TV camera, they have everything they need. Just being helpful like that, they just you develop a friendship with them, and then they don't want to put you in a bad light. And even when there are tough stories that they have to report on that maybe don't put you in the best light, they give you an opportunity to speak and defend yourself, or however, depending on the situation, however you'd like to put that. But developing a friendship with those people, even if it's just, a passing, hey, their name, it'll make a big difference for you. Another thing, I think it's so important, I made a note of it here. So you guys have probably heard the term off the record. You want to hear things off the record? Yeah, that doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. Journalists don't think that exists. Even when they're your friends, it doesn't exist. So most reporters will honor the off the record information that you provide, but you can't really ever trust it. So if you really have something secret or some information that you can't release yet, just pretend like you have nothing until you have permission to release that information. Are you guys interested in interview tips? Like, will any of you be in front of the camera, you think, maybe, possibly? I see some heads nodding. Okay, cool. So I actually teach a course to police officers on how to work with the media. Even though I'm not a reporter anymore, that's something that I know well because I had developed a great relationship with many of the law enforcement agencies around Southern Illinois. So one thing that I think is really important, so right now I'm sitting down in a chair, but I'm not sitting back. I'm not sitting back. Whenever you do an interview and you're sitting down, always scoot to the front of your table. Were any of you guys in band? Nobody played band? Well, they tell you whenever you're in band to sit at the front of your chair so you get that your chest is open and you can speak loudly and you can have your lungs open and breathe well. But it also just helps with confidence. To be able to sit at the edge of your chair and plant your feet, you feel more grounded. And whenever they're asking the question, so often you feel like you have to respond really quickly. And the time in between when the question ends and you start talking, it feels like it's been forever, but really it's only been a couple of seconds. So if you need to think about how to answer the question, it's okay to take a minute or, to take a breather and be like, well, let me think about how I want to put that, and just take a second to gather your thoughts. And during that time, make sure that you're calming yourself down because being in front of a camera is uncomfortable. You don't ever want to stare into the lens like we're doing in these Zoom calls. You want to make sure that you're looking at the person interviewing you. So don't stare into the camera because if you ever see the news and you see a person that's staring directly into the camera, it's typically pretty awkward to watch. So they have you a little bit off-centered. Then that's on purpose. It just makes everything look more appealing. It puts the person being interviewed at ease. Some other things, if you're not sitting and you're standing, people, when they get nervous, they start going like this, start rocking back and forth. So make a real effort to plant your feet, even if you have to plant them like a foot apart so you can't sway. Plant your feet and try to avoid fidgeting with your hands or your hair or whatever it may be. And you've probably heard me say or something along those lines, those words that catch us all up. Those are the words that we use whenever we're trying to think of the next thought. But you have to make a real effort whenever you're being interviewed. If they're just going to be using short sound bites, usually you do a whole interview and then they only take like 15 seconds of what you said to like an 8-second clip and a 7-second clip. So just don't feel like all of the information that you're giving them is going on air. It's not. Most of the information that you're providing is just background for that reporter, and then they're just going to take your best 2 sound bites, and those are the ones that they're going to put on the air. Is there any questions that you guys have? Because my news background, I feel like I keep things short and sweet because I was always told don't go over 1.5 minutes, and now I have 30 to 45 minutes here.
Does anyone have any questions?
If you have a career in PR, is it easy to switch over into going into news or any other careers like that?
I would say it's easier the other way. I mean, if you start in TV, like I did, you'll find that 98% of people in PR typically have a background in media. And that is because when you're in PR, you know how to work with the media. You know what they're looking for. You know the sound bites that they're looking for. The sound bites that they're looking for are the emotional ones, not the informational ones. The informational ones are information that you provide them, and then they can use that voice. They can write and voice that part, and then you provide the emotional soundbite. So I would say if you're interested in getting into PR, if you could do an internship at a TV station or a newspaper or radio station, that's something that you should consider, because it'll just open your eyes to the constraints that the people in media are in. You'll find that reporters have this reputation for being really pushy, and they want the information and they want it now. And, some of them are that way, but the majority of them are very, very stressed, and they're under a lot of pressure. And so you just be kind and try to get them information as quickly as possible. But just seeing kind of behind the curtain would probably make you better in public relations. But I'm not saying that it's not been done to do PR and then news, but I think it would be easier to get into news and then do PR.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Brigard.
So my minor is in journalism. So do you think that's like a good skill to like have? Because when I started it, it was kind of more or less like, because it was fulfilling my requirement. But the more I did it, it seemed like I was getting the other side of the curtain, like you said. So you would recommend like doing something like that's adjacent to what PR is?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I knew whenever I started in news that was not my forever. That was just my foot in the door to PR, a job that would allow me to work an 8 to 5, even though you work on the weekends and in the evenings occasionally, or get those calls at 4 a.m. But I would say, yeah, journalism is so helpful for so many reasons. You see behind the curtain, you develop those writing skills, which are, people just don't have the writing skills that they used to anymore. One of the first press releases that I took my new boss, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Wow, you're such a good writer. People don't have these skills anymore." And that's because all I did was write and write and write and post to the web. And people feel the need to elaborate, because, when we were in school, they were like, you have to write an essay and it has to be 2,000 words. Well, when you're in PR or when you're a journalist, just go until you don't have anything left to say. Go until the important information you don't have anymore. You've said it all. So yeah, and you're developing those writing skills, seeing behind the curtain. I recommend.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how do you do things with COVID right now? And are you safe? And I think you probably already answered this.
Are you meaning like here in the office or getting information out? Did she freeze up, or is it just me?
No, it's my stupid computer. I mean, it's my lovely computer. It's just the Wi-Fi. It always happens on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
That's okay.
Actually, I think it happens every day I'm on Zoom. So how do you do things with COVID, and are you safe?
Am I safe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my boss is really incredible, the city manager, Gary Williams. He is doing everything he can to take COVID-19 as seriously as he can here in the workplace. We have 250 city employees, and knock on wood, not a single one of us has tested positive yet. That's because we have to wear our masks all day long, unless we are in our office and somebody comes into our office. But if you're sitting at your desk just working independently, you don't have to have a mask on. But just walking around the building, going to the bathroom, going down to the kitchen, everyone has a mask on. And there's kind of a culture around here that if you don't have your mask on, people are going to call you out for it. And that's probably everywhere else too. But we've kind of made a joke about it, about, hey, don't let the boss catch you without your mask on. So, but it's always friendly. So yes, we are safe. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm on about 4 Zoom calls a day, it feels like. Even when those people are in the same building as me, we try to just avoid unnecessary contact. For a couple of months, many of us were working from home. I'm not good at that. So I asked my boss if I could come back into my office and I'll close the door and not socialize with anybody. But yes, I'm safe, and COVID has been an adjustment for sure. especially working with the media, because now they have this like long stick and they have the microphone at the end of the stick, and it makes the interview feel even more awkward when you're standing so far away from the person giving the interview.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
whoever wants to go.
So you say that there's a lot that the work doesn't stop when you get home at 5. How do you find that balance of, okay, this is my time to relax, to not stress about work? Because I know we all need that separation of that downtime. So how do you do that?
When I worked in TV news, I burnt myself out to the point that I was on social media all the time. Like that's not healthy for anyone. But I was, digging for stories because there's a lot of pressure to come up with a lead story. But there at the end, I got to the point where I was setting aside at least my dinner time, where I was not looking at my phone, or I wasn't panicked about my phone going off or an alert going off. I'm such a millennial, I hear an alert and I'm like, oh God, it must be something important. And it's never is. Rarely is, I should say. But now I would say if I post something and I know that it's going to be a post that is controversial, or I know it could get a negative reaction, I'm a little bit more heightened and I'll check it a couple of times a night. But I have set up in Facebook and Twitter ways to monitor comments. If there's profanity, it just automatically hides the comments. So I can stop worrying about hiding those things. But I've also found that people on social media, if I don't say anything and there's been somebody that posts something ugly, people will attack, and usually it's in defense of if somebody says something ugly, they're fighting them, and then I don't have to. So then I can just sit back and watch. But I would say to find a balance, take your job seriously, but it's a job. Remember, it's not your life. I'm 26 years old, and I'm really glad that I realized that now, and not later in life. But TV news taught me that you have to have a separation. And don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. Never a good idea. Put your phone in the bathroom. That way you get up when your alarm goes off and you're not checking Facebook first thing.
Thank you.
So
Oh, you can go.
Jamie? Is it Jamie? Yeah.
So what do you do most in your position?
In my position, oh goodness, it changes every single day. So you guys probably know about the Saluki Ad Lab. I don't know if any of you are members of Saluki Ad Lab, but they help me a lot with the social media content that I put out. But a big portion of my job is developing social media content. I create videos for YouTube, informational videos for internal use. I write it's called a communique, but I write a monthly article that is for the town, and it talks about all things Carbondale. So every day I'm trying to go out and take pictures of things that are going on, promote businesses, talk with people in the community about what they need to see on social media. Recently, the census has taken up a large chunk of my day. If you guys have not taken your census yet, please do so. You got 2 weeks left, and it can make a big difference for people here in Carbondale, but it really changes. My husband, that's funny to say now, but my husband, whenever I get home, he asks me, what'd you do today? And I say, I can't even tell you, because I did so much, or so many different things. But one of the reasons why I was hired for this position is I really enjoy creating videos and video content. And so a lot of my day is spent going out and getting video and then coming back and editing, which is what I did in news. So it was an easy transition.
Yeah, so before you send out any information like these articles or these videos after you edit them, is there someone else that edits after you before you post it?
No. But whenever I worked in news, there was always 2 sets of eyes that had to see the content before it went out. And I am still a big fan of that rule because, people autocorrect. It'll get you. So it's best to have somebody else look at something before you post it. If I'm standing there and the governor's in town, for example, and I was standing there and I was writing out a Facebook post saying, here are the 3 main things that he addressed. And I needed to get that information out quickly. I didn't know the person sitting next to me, and I just flipped my phone around and say, do you see any spelling errors there? Just to check, you know what I mean? And they looked at me and they were like, read it, and they said no, and I was like, thanks, and I hit post. But if it's a controversial topic, or if it's a press release that's of great importance and there's a lot of detail in it, I will have my boss look at it before it goes out. But if it's just like a road closure or something like that, I just type it up and send it out.
Thank you.
But a good rule is to always have 2 sets of eyes.
This is sort of a very specific question, but I was curious, what video editing software do you use?
Final Cut 10.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I worked with Final Cut 7 for a long time, and then I hated 10 when it first came out.
Yeah, Final Cut is it.
Now I love 10. It's the best.
Final Cut is it.
Yeah. Yeah. Haley.
Hi. Okay, so with Carbondale's social media, where have you been able to find the most like outreach and engagement? Like, would that be Instagram or Facebook or Twitter?
Depends on the demographic. I would say Facebook across the board, but if I want to reach the younger crowd, I have on Instagram and Twitter. But Twitter shortens my messages, and sometimes I have too many words to say.
I have a question.
Yeah, I can't do what you asked. Okay.
Hold on, sorry. I'll turn on my video. So my question is, how was the transition from like college to working in the real world? More so like public relations. Like my fear when I get out of college, because I graduate this year, is like them throwing me in a job and I'm not like, I listen during class and stuff, but like to retain all the information I need to be like the perfect public relations person, like I don't know how that would work. Like are they gonna throw me in there and be like, okay, do what you have to do, or like is there a person who guides you through it and like a mentor? Like how does it go?
Hopefully you have someone that can give you a little bit of guidance. And I can tell you, even now, 9 months into this job, I'm still not 100% confident in all of the things that I do in a day. Just because I think it takes you a good year of day in and day out work to understand your job, understand your role, how you fit, what your strengths are in this new role. So whenever you get a new job, don't put so much pressure on yourself to know everything. They don't expect you to know everything. You're new. So ask questions, offer ideas, but don't feel like you have to have the perfect answer. And when your boss says, oh, good idea, but what about this? Don't take it personally. Just take notes, That was hard for me to, I took everything so personally when I first started in TV news. But I learned from all of those comments. They just make you better at what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, any more questions?
I had a question.
Yeah.
So like I know you said that your schedule has to be pretty flexible, and like a lot of it probably impacts is by like news and current events that happen. But like how can you explain like a typical everyday schedule for you?
A typical everyday schedule for me. So typically when I wake up, I don't have my phone in the bedroom because I have to get myself out of bed. So I don't check my phone right away. I check my work phone to make sure that I don't have any notifications or missed calls from my boss. But then I go about my regular morning, and then I come in at 8 o'clock. I check my emails. I check all of the news agencies. I set up the Google word search or whatever that thing is where you can type in keywords and it'll let you know when Carbondale, Illinois has been mentioned in articles. And so I'll go through all of those. If there's anything of importance or anything I need to bring up to my boss, he and I meet every day at 8:30. So I'll go in and he and I will discuss what the day is going to look like most of the time. I have a lot of freedom in this new gig, whereas before in TV news, my day was very scheduled out. Most of the time I didn't even have a lunch break. You just have to eat on the go. But this new gig, it allows you to, you're flexible, and you have to work sometimes odd hours in the evening, but usually those are events that you have to go to. I know events aren't going on right now because of COVID, but when I first started, there was a lot of like, there was a tree lighting ceremony and craft fairs and fun stuff like that that you just get to be a part of. But typically the day wraps up at 5 o'clock. If I've got all of the information that I need to get out, I'll go home, I'll eat dinner, and probably by about 7 or 7:30, I'll take one more look at social media and just make sure that nobody's tearing us apart or, there's not a huge fire or something like that. And then I can kind of rest for the evening. Then I call it good.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question? I hope it did.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm saying a lot of words.
I'm good. Thank you.
Well, we probably need to wrap up, so we can probably take maybe a couple more questions real quick if anyone has any final questions.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
If you kind of like go back in your life, what advice would you give to your like younger self when you were like maybe like a junior or a senior in college before going into your career?
I mentioned it earlier, but don't put so much pressure on yourself to know everything right out of the gate, because you're not. Experience is a great teacher. There's a saying, experience is a great teacher and a fool can learn from no other. My dad used to say that to me all the time. It didn't sink in until I started working. And then I realized that you just got to get the experience, and don't leave work every day feeling like, oh gosh, I got corrected 4 times and I had a spelling error on something I put on the web. I mean, you just learn from those things. So just take it with a grain of salt and keep pushing forward.
Thank you.
It's easier said than done, but remember this conversation, hopefully, whenever you're feeling down.
Definitely.
Anybody else? Anybody who hasn't had a chance to ask a question, want to ask one?
Yeah, I got one that I was thinking about for a minute. I don't know if it's applicable, but have you made anything viral? Like, what's the most viral post or tweet or anything like that you've had so far?
So I did whenever ironically, it was for the city of Carbondale. It was for a Carbondale event, but I actually worked at WSIL. And me and my friend created a fun video where I was one of the, it sounds so silly to me to say celebrity, but like it said local celebrities, and there was a poster and you had a chance to get them in the dunk tank. And so that was is to get these local celebrities into the dunk tank. And so I had one of my good friends come out with me, and I had told him the idea that I had, and we created a video on just of me getting in the dunk tank, and at the 4th Friday Fair here in Carbondale. And overnight we had like thousands of views, and it was kind of just crazy, but it was fun just because we put it to a popular song, and it was short, sweet, and fun to watch. Music has a lot to do with popular content. If it's bad music, if it's like elevator music, people are going to tune right out. So try to find something catchy.
What song did you use?
Oh goodness, I knew you were going to ask me that. Can you let me Google it? Can you guys still see me, or did I disappear?
You're here.
This was 4 years ago. I can sing it, but I don't want to sing. Can you hear that, guys? Can you hear that?
Kind of.
A little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
That's can send you guys that video if you'd like. It's funny.
Please do.
Okay. Maybe I'll put the link down here in the chat. Okay, there's the link. 34,000 views.
That's impressive. Well,
did any of you go to school with Jordan Taylor? I think he maybe graduated before any of you guys started, but he and I were the ones that created that video. It went up on his YouTube page.
well, you can all check that out. It's posted in the chat and everything. But we don't want to take up too much of your time. We know that obviously you're very busy right now and everything, but we do want to thank you for taking your time today to talk to us. I mean, I think you can tell lots of questions, very informative to the students and everything. And, you know, I think it's always useful to hear people in different sorts of PR positions. And, you know, one of the things that I try to emphasize with the students is there are local PR jobs. You don't have to go to Chicago or St. Louis to work in public relations. But, you know, we really appreciate it that you were able to stop by and talk to us. And if you're interested in seeing more of Roni's work, you should follow the Carbondale Facebook page because there's certainly lots of her work up on there and everything. But thank you for coming by today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to talk with all of you. You guys all had great questions. I dropped the link and also my email address in the chat section. So if you guys ever have any questions, please send me an email. I'm so easy to talk to, and I love to help if you guys ever have questions. So even if it's questions about starting a new job and the emotional side of things, I would love to help because I've been through all of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Does this mean we hop off now?
Yeah, I think we're, Kiki, do you have anything to say to the group?
I don't. I should have put the link for you guys to pay your dues with the 20% off that we currently have. If you didn't get that, let me know and I'll repost it. Just in case, because I know my phone's been glitching for the time being. So it's fun this way. But otherwise, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for having questions for Roni. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us. It's always great to hear, especially from local people, on their experience in PR, especially how they're dealing with COVID right now. So thank you so much. And thank you guys for coming and attending and asking her questions, of course. But other than that, that is all that I have for you guys.
Right. Well, I hope to hear from you guys. Send me an email, even if it's just to say hello. Maybe we can connect on LinkedIn or something like that. All right. Have a great evening.
All right.
You too. Bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, Kiki, if you can post that link again for dues, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll repost it. I know my phone's been glitching, so.
Is there a board today?
Yeah.
Just quick. It shouldn't take very long.
Okay, just wondering because I was about to hop
We'll
off.
send that email out